Hello, parents, and welcome to Parent Resource Live. My name is Jessica Chavez, and I'm with Arizona Science Center, here to be a resource for you. So we are so excited to be here today. We are here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. So if you are a first-time watcher, welcome. We are so glad you're here. In addition to this, we have Facebook Live demos every day, as well as some great resources on our website you should be sure to check out at azscience.org. So even though our doors are closed, we are not closed to you, and we are here to be a resource for you. So today, as you can probably see in the title, we are going to be uncovering the engineering design process in books. So chances are you have a lot of different stories at your home, or you can access them online. YouTube has a great resource of just storybooks that are read using the actual book. But we are going to break that down with some things that we've talked about in the past. So again, if you're a first-time watcher, don't worry, you're not missing anything. You can review some of our other videos before, but I'm going to be bringing it back with some resources I have today. So we are going to be talking about a story, and really you can take any story, but I chose one that I've used before and just happens to be at my house. So we are going to take the story, What Floats on a Moat. So I'm not sure if you have this one at home. However, it is a great story about a goat and a chicken, or a hen, named Skinny the hen and Archie the goat. And so through this story, the whole story is essentially about how Archie wants to get across the moat not using the drawbridge. So he's tasked to deliver buttermilk to the queen, and so he wants to use science. And Archie's namesake is after Archimedes, the Greek scientist who talks about the displacement of water. So that's kind of the premise of the story. But essentially in this story, Archie has a problem he needs to get across, and then he goes through several iterations or trials to make sure he can test different designs to get across the moat. Eventually successful. However, he did use the barrels that had the buttermilk in them. So he justified it to the queen that sometimes science and discovery is more important than buttermilk. So this is a great story. Again, there's several stories that you can use for this. We have the three little pigs, we have the three javelinas. I mean, literally everything. Just most of the stories follow kind of the similar storyline of, there's a situation, there's a problem, how do they solve it, and what's the result. So any story will work, but I am using this one just to give you some context. And we are going to be talking about first, how do we make sure our students understand what the story was about. So I'm going to review something we reviewed a few weeks ago. It matches my shirt perfectly today. And it's the 5-finger retelling. So I did a different version at the top for older students, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And we have 5 fingers to talk about different parts of it. So we have the somebody, who is the story about and where are they? Wanted, what did the main character want? But what happened to stop the main character from getting what they wanted? Then, what did the character do to fix the problem? And 5, how did it end? So I quickly did a retelling of the story, but essentially we have Archie and Skinny the hen. What's the problem? They're trying to get across. How are they solving it? Well, they tried several ways to get across, building things that float and things that sink. And so through that process, they were able to solve the problem and get across. And so how it ended was they were able to get across to see the queen, however, not to give the buttermilk. So as we do those story retellings, it's really important to make sure that our students are understanding what they're reading or what they're listening to, checking for those context clues, all that great stuff in a story. However, today we are going to focus on incorporating the engineering design process. So again, some of you might be watching this, and I love the engineering design process. We love it here at Arizona Science Center, so we talk about it a lot. But if you're new, I did a little drawing here of the engineering design process. So we usually start with ask here, and then we get to imagine, plan, create, and improve. And now this is an iterative process. So even though you might start here and go over here, you might get halfway through. And again, it's really about students figuring out how to be resourceful and how to redesign, because they want to go through this process to understand, and again gets just to think about their thinking. So when we go through the engineering design process here, we're going to apply the story to it. So asking questions. So what is the problem? What is Archie's problem? So in this situation, Archie needs to get across. So what materials does Archie have? How is Archie able to use his friend Skinny the hen? what's the depth of the water of the moat, those kinds of things. And some of the answers you'll be able to get to through the book, but also it's fun to kind of imagine this because we really want students to kind of do a reverse design here. And we'll get more into that in just a minute. But then we want to imagine, so how are we actually applying the book? So what are some ways that Archie imagined getting into across the boat? So, tried using barrels that were full, tried using barrels that were empty, tried a variety of things that were successful or not so successful, and then made a plan. So, and then executed it. So then Archie created the test, whether it was successful or not, and then based off of what happened, improved it. So obviously, even though Archie was successful at the end getting across the moat, however, he used all the buttermilk to do it. So maybe in an improved stage, we would try to find a solution that had a liquid in it, so to speak, buttermilk in the situation. So how do we take a story and create a STEM challenge? So yes, we don't have barrels. No, we don't have buttermilk, but we might have some empty containers at home. We might have some foil. We might have some straws, a lot of different things. So you can design your own experiment based off of the story and Archie. So what you can do is create your own problems. So what do we want to create? Maybe it's something to figure out that floats. Maybe it's to hold a certain amount of toys. We've talked about this in a previous lesson plan, but again, it's great to make these connections between different strategies to do it. So making something that talking about buoyancy, what will float and what will not. So maybe you start with what sinks and what floats for our younger kids, maybe for our older kids too at this point in the game. But it's always good to just check for understanding so that you can move forward, but then going through the design process. So asking, what do we have here? What are our materials? What's our time constraint? What's the goal? So whatever you decide as a family, and it's great to include your student just because then there's a little bit of buy-in and then also some excitement to it. And then letting your student imagine ideas and brainstorm as big as possible, but we'll bring them back is through asking questions. And then creating a plan. So I encourage at these two stages to really start getting a piece of paper or a STEM notebook or whatever you have to having them start to document what they're doing. And then testing it out. So creating and improving. So they might create something that they need to test in some water. Maybe you have a bathtub, maybe you use a sink, maybe you have a tub of water, whatever you have at home. This is designed to do wherever you're at and whenever you want. But then going back in and improving the design. So with that, that's kind of my quick tip of the day. So how can you take a storybook? I've done things with the Three Little Pigs. I've done the Gingerbread Man. So there's been lots of different ways that you can incorporate it. There's always a problem. One book that I do like is There's No Room on the Broom. It's kind of a Halloween book, but that's a great example of the engineering design process. But once you know about the engineering design process, you see it a lot in a lot of the stories because they always have to work towards a solution, and sometimes it's building something. So there's great books. Again, this was the resource I used today, What Floats on a Moat, if you want to use this one. However, there's very similar ones. We talked about five-finger retelling and as well as the engineering design process. So that was a very quick fast food version of how to do something, but I hope it gives you some encouragement to try something new. I hope that you maybe share what you tried at home. Please feel free to tag us. I would love to see what you came up with. And then really putting the driver's seat, your students in the driver's seat to come up with their own challenges. So it's not just so heavy on the parent deciding, we're doing this today, this is what we're doing, but reading the book and then encouraging them to come up with their own design challenge. And maybe if they're old enough and don't need as much help, they could design a challenge for you to do later in the evening. So that is my quick tip. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions whatsoever or need additional resources, feel free to put some comments and I will respond back. But again, our website is such a great resource at azscience.org. There's DIY activities, there's videos, there's all sorts of things to spark curiosity and imagination. So with that, have a great day. And if you haven't need anything, just let us know. Bye.